Football Outsiders has them with a mean projection of 7.3 wins this year. That's on the lower end of one of the spectrum of the projected wins that I've seen for this team. They have them as a playoff contender, and again, by their metric, that's 9 to 11 wins, getting there 25.3% of the time, and a Super Bowl winner at 0.7% of the time. I'm sure a lot of that has to do with the fact that they play in the division that they play in as well. ESPN has them as the 20th best roster heading into 2021, and our friend Warren Sharp over at Sharp Football, 11th easiest schedule as we head into 2021. Again, that is projected with the win totals of the teams that they are going to play. So we're not looking back at how the teams did last year. We're looking forward as to how these teams are supposed to perform, and they have the 11th easiest schedule here in 2021. Sharp Football has them projected at 9 wins. So you can see the big difference there between Football Outsiders and Sharp Football. Football Outsiders at 7.3 wins, Sharp Football at 9 wins in second place in the AFC West. Pro Football Focus, right in the middle of the two of them, 8.1 wins for this team. So we have kind of a pretty big disparity here because most of these projection systems are kind of right in line, right? Like a lot of these guys like come up with the same numbers a lot of times, and it's normally just decimal points that they're different.
What is your feeling as to why that is?
I think there's a lot to go into. One, it is still a second-year quarterback, and while we normally see quarterbacks take a leap in the second year, we have seen regression in the second year. Daniel Jones had a pretty good rookie year for the Giants and had a ton of regression in his second year. I think the other thing could be that this offensive line, while it was definitely upgraded, they are going to start four new guys. So 4 of the 5 starters are new, right? And so there has to be some continuity kind of come into place at some point down the line. Will they be able to just really step in right from the get-go and be able to protect, again, Justin Herbert, who we think is going to be one of the true superstars in this game. First-round pick Rashawn Slater opted out in 2020, so maybe if you don't remember him playing in college, that might be why, because he did opt out for the COVID season in 2020. But in 2019, this is just he only allowed 5 quarterback pressures in his entire season at offensive tackle in 355 snaps. Wow. He only allowed 5 quarterback pressures. He is truly one of the elite offensive lineman prospects that we've seen, and so that's why he went as high as he did even after opting out and not getting anything in 2020. Corey Linsley, as we mentioned, absolutely huge, and you want to talk about how good he's been. We talk about the 5 quarterback pressures in 355 attempts at the collegiate level for Rashawn Slater. In 2020, Corey Linsley, 7 pressures allowed on 530 snaps for the Packers last year. Again, why he graded out as the number 1 center in all of Pro Football's grading. On the defensive line, according to Pro Football Focus, they have them rated as the 20th best defensive line entering the season. Look, we know Joey Bosa is an absolute stud. He has had a 22% pass rush win rate since 2016. Only Aaron Donald, who might be the greatest defensive player of all time, has a better pass rush win rate than Joey Bosa over that time frame. And he actually posted a 23.5% win rate last season, which was better than Aaron Donald. So Joey Bosa, we know, is an absolute stud. The problem is they had to spend a first-round pick on Jerry Tillery a few years ago, and he has just been an absolute bust so far. They've tried him on the outside. They've tried him on the inside. Very little success anywhere they've lined up Jerry Tillery. Gil, how is a negative 0.22 wins above replacement over the last 2 seasons for Jerry Tillery? Again, a former first-round pick, and he is negative to a replacement-level player.
I was going to say, yours is 0.
Yes.
0
worse than a replacement-level player over the last 2 seasons. So he is really going to have to step it up, or they're going to have to find someone to step in and take his place. You don't really want to kick a first-round pick to the curb if you don't have to, but again, Tillery has just been a liability on that defensive line. Linval Joseph, been a solid contributor over the years there. He is at least, but he's getting older. He's up there in age, and certainly we start to see a decline for guys like that. So this defensive line could be at least a little bit of a liability outside of just Bosa. The secondary actually should be pretty good so long as Derwin James and Chris Harris can stay healthy, because that's been the big problem with these two guys. Derwin James, of course, as we know, had one of the better rookie seasons of a defensive player that we've seen in quite a long time. Then 2 injury-plagued seasons, barely been out on the field. Chris Harris comes over to this team last year, only played 7 games for them last year. So we need, if you're a Chargers fan, you need Derwin James, you need Chris Harris to stay healthy, because again, if you're not getting a ton of help from defensive line, you certainly need these secondary guys to be as good as humanly possible. And you're going to need Asante Samuel Jr., your second-round pick, to play up to expectation as well, because he's going to have to step in and start. On the offensive side of the ball here, this is one of the things where if you're a Chargers fan, you have to be super, super excited. One, not only do you have a year 2 in Justin Herbert, and we usually see guys take a step forward in year 2, but you also look at just this talent pool that he's got to throw to here, and it's absolutely awesome. You know, I mean, Keenan Allen, as steady as you can be. Mike Williams, one of those guys that can go up and get one of those. You know, he's one of the better 50-50 ball guys there is in the entire league as a deep threat. They bring in Josh Palmer to play in the slot, who's instantly going to step in and be a nice slot player for them. And if you remember, they still have a couple of different guys that they can plug in as those 4th and 5th wide receivers as well. Guyton got a pretty good amount of playing time last year. And so I think that this is a pretty good offense if you look and consider that they're going to change scheme as well. Gil, this is one of the things we talk about is, and maybe this was one, I'm sure this had to do with Anthony Lynn as well, and then 2, just with his philosophy, and then 2, I guess maybe could be just because they had a rookie quarterback as well. But early down, game neutral situations, they only passed the ball 51% of the time. So they were basically 50-50 run pass in game neutral situations on early down. And as we know, passing the ball is more efficient than running the ball, especially when you have a guy who's pretty good at passing the ball and you have receivers who are pretty good at catching the ball. And so you can only imagine they're going to pass more this year. You can only imagine, especially when you consider that the offensive coordinator coming in and Joe Lombardi was with the Saints. Saints are typically a pass-happy team up until, the last year or two when Drew Brees kind of started to lose it a little bit, but comes in. I think he's going to know how to really kind of turn this offense around a little bit, make the defense not know exactly what you're going to do, and just be a little bit more unpredictable there in those situations where you should be taking shots, you should be throwing the ball, you should be, especially when you're not losing, you're in game neutral situations. So I think that I think there is a ceiling for this team. When we look at the projection here that we're talking about from Football Outsiders at 7.3 wins, that almost feels like the floor to me.